Alexa was in her last year of school. As soon as she turned 18 a month ago, she'd made up her mind to move out of her parents' home. She was an only child and was doted on constantly by both her mom and dad. People would assume that someone who'd grown up with that much fondness was used to constantly getting her way. Contrary to popular belief, Alexa was one of the most humble people her age. There was no one who didn't like her. She wasn't the most typically attractive girl in her year, by the superficial beauty standards that most teenagers held in such high regard. Still, there was something so endearing about the way she carried herself and treated people that garnered the attention of most boys at her school. Needless to say, she was well liked. Why would Alexa move out of her parents' house, one might wonder? She comes from a loving home, right? What people did not realize was that the love her parents showered Alexa with constantly was equally matched by their protectiveness over her and everything that she did. On the rare occasion that she received their permission to leave the house and go out with her friends, one of Alexa's parents would chaperone her to her destination, and once there, would remain within the vicinity. It hurt her that she had always done the most to make them happy, both academically and at home. Yet somehow, they couldn't seem to give her the space and enough trust as an adult to be around people that weren't them. The only place where she had that freedom was at school, and in a few months, she would be graduating and would no longer have that sanctuary either. She had decided it was about time that she herself set some boundaries. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but she knew that this would hurt them. Carefully, she did her best to plan an approach, with a reasoning that would cause the least damage. Being a people-pleaser who rarely ever acted with her own best interests at heart, this was a big step for Alexa. However, there was the inevitable problem that she faced as a result of her constantly going out of her way to do things for people. She always did her best to ensure that all involved parties were happy, even if it was at the expense of her own comfort, and as a result, she had become terrible at confrontation. Regardless, her mind was made. She wasn't going to tell them the whole truth, but fragments of it. She would leave out how they made her feel and focus on the fact that she wanted to do this for her own independence. As they were finishing up lunch that day, Alexa, mustering as much courage as she could, spoke up. It did not go well. She watched as her parents' faces morphed from the affectionate smiles they always carried when she spoke to them to subdued but very prominent rage, as Alexa told them that she wanted to do this so she could grow as a person. Alexa heavily emphasized her concern that their overwhelming love and support in everything that she did might lead to her becoming too complacent. What if she grew up not knowing how to fend for herself? Why would you need to? They contended. Alexa's heart dropped. Legally, she knew it was in her right to move out, and they couldn't stop her if they wanted to. At the same time, she did not want to hurt their feelings. To an extent, she felt that it was almost selfish that they would force themselves into every aspect of her life. She knew it would hinder her growth as an adult if she did not escape it now. As tenderly as possible, Alexa explained to them how now that she was 18, she thought that this was a reasonable decision to make, and that she had already made arrangements. Apologizing for the hurt she may have caused them, she excused herself and went to her room, leaving her parents boiling in their anger. They would never fully take it out on her, she knew. Somehow, that made her feel even more guilty for what she was about to do. That night, she began hunting for part-time jobs that she could work after school hours. Her parents had never allowed her to work before, but if she wanted to take this independence that she yearned for seriously, then she would have to earn the money for rent and food by herself as well. The people skills that she had inbuilt in her over many years came into use, and almost every interview she'd received a callback for that day ended in Alexa's favor. Browsing through her options, she chose the one closest to her home. She was already rebelling against her parents. She hoped that being near them during the time that she was going to be away from home would give them some reassurance that she was not entirely cutting them off. In addition to that, this was a cosmetic warehouse. She had always had an interest in cosmetology, and this could have been the best first step that she could have taken in pursuit of that dream. As soon as she had made her choice, she went to her parents with the news. She knew now that it was simply better for her to rip the Band-Aid off. This did not make her any less anxious. Much to her surprise and delight, both of them welcomed the idea of her starting to earn her own money. They smiled and asked if she needed to be dropped off or picked up from work. Her dad even said that he was proud of her for taking up this initiative. While the switch in their perspectives was definitely strange, Alexa did not dwell on it for too long. She was going to make the most of this opportunity and her parents' approval, and prove to them that they had nothing to be worried about. The next afternoon, Alexa made her way to her new workplace. From her bright, beaming face, no one could have told that she was on her way to work. She was about to walk in when out of the corner of her eyes, she spotted something shimmering in the distance, wedged between two small pots. Intrigued, she went toward it. Upon closer inspection, Alexa realized it was a beautiful wallet adorned with little gorgeous stones that sparkled in the light. It looked like it was an expensive one as well. Deeply concerned for the individual who may have lost it, she picked it up, hoping there would be some form of identification inside to help her return the purse to its rightful owner. Alexa decided to take the purse to the police station. Her shift did not start for another couple of hours anyway. She had arrived exceptionally early out of excitement. This was definitely a detour from the route she had promised her parents she would follow, but they hadn't seemed too concerned. Quite out of character, she had thought. Arriving at the nearest police station, Alexa handed over the wallet. She reported all the details of how she had come across it, and contemplating her story, the police officer told her that the description of the purse and the location closely matched the details of someone else who had just come in to report their missing wallet. Alexa was delighted that she had been able to help them. The kind lady, to whom the lovely purse belonged, thanked Alexa profusely. All her credit cards and a lump sum of cash she had recently withdrawn were in that purse, and it would have ruined her to have lost them. She offered to reward Alexa with cash, and on her polite and grateful decline, the lady insisted that she at least take the purse itself. Alexa was horrified at the thought of taking away something so beautiful from the kind lady, and refused the generous offer, but the lady would not take no for an answer. Shoving the contents of the wallet into the bag she was carrying, the lady shoved the wallet in Alexa's hands, thanked her once again, and left the station. Grateful for and touched by the lavish gift, Alexa decided to start using it immediately. She went to work that day with a grin even wider than the one she had plastered on the way to work initially. The day went better than she could have imagined it. She was enjoying her job, despite how tedious it was right off the bat. Work had ended and it was dark outside. Under normal circumstances, her parents would have come to pick her up, but today, she was by herself. She didn't mind. Her home was barely 10 minutes away, and she enjoyed walks by herself more than she liked to admit. She was halfway there when she felt the presence of someone behind her. Turning around, it befuddled her to see that there was no one there. After concluding that she must have just been making it up, she continued with her journey home. Every so often, the feeling that she was being followed would reappear, and she could not seem to shake it off. If her gut feeling was right, then the last thing she wanted was to be followed all the way home and allow a stranger to figure out where she lived. She took a sharp turn at the junction away from her house and kept walking. There was a store nearby, and she figured she would spend a little time there to throw the stalker off. Glancing behind her for the fourth time that minute, she spotted a figure immediately sink back into the shadows to avoid being seen by her. She had been right. She was being followed. She was at the store for 5 minutes when the door swung open and her dad barged in. "What are you doing here? I thought you said we could trust you and that you would only be traveling back and forth from work for now," he yelled. He had never yelled at Alexa before. She was taken aback, to say the least. Praying that the stalker wasn't listening, she reassured him that she was just famished after work and had felt like grabbing a packet of chips before making her way home. "How did you know where I was, Dad?" Alexa asked. She didn't want to show it, but she was actually glad he had turned up without her having to call him. If she had called him, it would have added to their argument that it was unsafe for her to be traveling alone. She posed the question casually, but her father's eyes flitted to the sides, something he tended to do when he was nervous. "I came to pick something up for your mom," he responded, defensively almost. Alexa didn't think too much of it. After all, she was glad to see him here. There was no way the creepy stalker would be able to keep up with the car. Hooking her arm through his, they walked to the vehicle. It was a silent ride home, and Alexa was conflicted. She had never kept anything from her parents before, but at the same time, she knew that if she told them about the stranger that was following her home, they wouldn't ever give her the freedom to leave the house again. She was not ready to let go of her plans just yet. The following day, Alexa decided that, before work, she would take a look at the vacant apartments that she had found in a real estate magazine. Once she had collected enough for the initial deposit, she did not want to delay moving out. The agent she had contacted was already waiting for her at her first option. Alexa was not picky about the interior, but what she did care about was the view from her bedroom window. Ever since she was little, one look outside was all it took to take her mind off of things. That was how she coped. She took a look around the place. It didn't seem too shabby, and it was a good deal for the price that it was being offered. Now, for the important part, she thought, as she made her way to the main bedroom. She drew open the curtains, and the sunlight flooded into the room. Her room overlooked a beautiful open garden. "This is perfect," she thought to herself, when almost as though to prove her wrong, she saw movement behind the tree closest to the window. Her eyes widened. It couldn't be. The figure looked directly at her, his face covered by a mask. She fell to the floor, clutching at her heart. The agent came rushing in. Are you okay? Before she could break into a panic attack, she took deep breaths and calmed herself down. The agent was concerned, but she smiled and shakily reassured him that she would be back tomorrow, excusing herself as she had to leave for work. Her workplace was only a 5-minute walk away, but she was too afraid to go there herself. She caught herself a taxi and made it to work right on time. That night, after work, she decided to be extra careful. Taking all necessary precautions, she had brought along a penknife and pepper spray. The stalker had not tried anything yet, and she hoped they never would. The minute work was over, she started speed walking home. Not even 2 minutes after she left, she started hearing footsteps behind her. She felt like she could burst into tears at any moment. She did not want to risk taking a detour this time as well. All she wanted was to go to her parents and be in the comfort of her own home. Her quick steps turned into a jog, which quickly escalated into Alexa running all the way home. She didn't turn back to see if he was still coming after her, nor did she care if he now knew where she lived. Barging into her home and locking the doors behind her, she sank to the floor, gasping for air. Her mother walked towards her. Alexa almost cried in relief when she saw the face of her beloved mother when she stopped. Her mother looked at her coldly. Alexa had never seen her mother like that. Was something wrong? Her mother strode toward her and, before she could even process what was happening, slapped her across her face. She choked back her tears. She was stunned. What had just happened? She'd just come home, narrowly escaping a kidnapping or potentially even death, to tell her parents that she had changed her mind. She had been terrified out of her wits and no longer thought it was safe for her to be independent, at least for the time being. And yet, this is how she was being welcomed? Her cheeks stung, but the pain paled in comparison to what she was feeling in her heart at that moment. Why had her mother not stopped to ask her why she found her in that state? Had she stopped caring? She had hit Alexa, for the first time in her life. Her dad walked towards the commotion. Alexa looked up at him, helplessly, hoping to receive some sort of affection from at least him in her vulnerable state. But no, his gaze was stern, as if he had no love for her. Who were these people? And what had they done with her parents? So that's why you wanted to move out so quickly, huh? You're looking for a place to move into with this new boyfriend of yours. Alexa was utterly confused. What could he possibly be talking about? How did he know she had gone to look at apartments when she had told them she was leaving for work? And then it hit her, all at once, like a tornado that she never saw coming. She couldn't breathe. There was no way she could be right about this. In fact, she prayed that she was wrong. There was no way her own parents would do that to her. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at the two people who had devoted their entire lives to taking care of her. That person who's been following me for a week now? Was that you? Did you set this up? One look at her parents' guilty faces confirmed her thoughts. They started defending themselves against her accusations, claiming that everything they did was for her own good, and only because they loved her. Alexa turned them out. She replayed in her mind everything that had happened that week, from the purse, to the stalker, to her dad barging into the supermarket without her ever having told him that she was there. She removed the purse from her bag. Did you bug me? Is the wallet how you did it? Does this thing have a tracker in it? She was met with silence. Rushing up the stairs, she began to pack her bags. She would leave first thing tomorrow and either take the first available apartment or sleep on the streets. Her mom followed her to her room, yelling in protest about how ungrateful she was for everything they had done for her their entire lives. Alexa squeezed her eyes shut, refusing to waste any more tears on them. This was a hard pill to swallow. She had never thought there would come a day when her relationship with her parents would be strained, let alone entirely ruined. It didn't matter to her anymore whether or not they thought that her agent was actually her boyfriend. She didn't care who they sent after her. She was going to leave and show them what she was truly capable of achieving when she finally had the freedom and space to spread her wings. She was going to take flight and never return.